My entitled sister is demanding that my husband and I name our future daughter in the exact same way that she plans on doing it, by using some old vintage name that we're honestly not interested in. And after listening to her delusional ramblings about what we need to do for our child, my husband and I feel backed into a corner about our future daughter. And at this point, we seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So my sister and I are both expecting our first baby. My sister is super in love with vintage names, and for about a decade now, she has talked everybody's ear off about how much she wants to have babies with these names. I know her top 3 names for boys and girls are names like Edith and Martha and Audrey, as well as Alan, Harold, and Stanley for the boys. I'm not sure which of these names my future niece or nephew will get, but I know they are still my sister's top choices. Now, my husband and I are not going for vintage names or any classic names. We chose the name Lyric, which is a pretty modern and not super common name. Now, my sister doesn't know the name yet, but she is aware of some names that we chose not to use. And honestly, she was upset that we didn't have a vintage name on there. She made all these suggestions, and I told her thanks, but we had a different type of name that we wanted. She then asked me why we didn't want to have the cousins match styles with their names, and she said how cute it would be to have 2 little cousins with matching old people names. She had this idea of doing this photo shoot when the babies are born, where we dress them like grannies and grandpas, and she said the old names would make everything so much more perfect. And eventually, I just stopped talking about it when she did not take no for an answer. I got lists of vintage names, sent articles on how vintage names are in style right now, and I just ignored all of it. She even sent me Instagram and TikTok accounts where it shows these babies with these vintage names, and she's like, oh, look at how cute that is. Doesn't this name sound so sweet for this little baby? Doesn't the vintage name add to the cuteness? And honestly, at this point, I didn't engage or buy any of it. And now my sister is crying and saying that I'm ruining this, and she commented like she can't use a vintage name for her baby because we're not doing that. So I told her straight up, just because I'm not giving my daughter a vintage name doesn't mean that she can't use a vintage name on her baby. I pointed out that they are 2 separate people with 2 different parents and we don't need to match. But she cried that it won't be the same. And why can't I see how dismissive my comment is? So seriously, I really need to know, am I the jerk in this situation? Because right now I'm very frustrated and I really don't know what to do. No, of course you're not the jerk in this story. Like seriously, your sister is out of her mind. Like here's a news flash for your sister. You do not have to name your baby in the same style as her stupid baby. Like this is seriously so weird it's not even funny. You mean to tell me that she's really getting bent out of shape because you guys don't want to have the same stupid name style as her baby? Like she's really making this that big of a deal that she wants to dictate your daughter's future identity and like entire life based off of some stupid photo shoot she wants to do after they're born? Like what is going on right now? That is not normal. You can't just make demands like that and act super entitled about someone else's child. That doesn't make any sense. And I think the best part about this is that she's actually like legitimately getting upset over this. She's crying and freaking out that you're not following along with her stupid trend, and that really is the definition of crazy in my opinion, because she has absolutely no say in your child's future name, and the fact that she does think that, in my opinion, is completely out of hand.
If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories.
My uncle is an absolute menace in my extended family, as he has on multiple occasions ruined so many gatherings that it's now caused a divide in the rest of my family. Here's what happened. A few Thanksgivings ago, my uncle on my mom's side ruined the celebration in a huge way. We had extended family over, and a few of the adults were playing card games. My mother was winning, and my drunk uncle decided that she was cheating somehow. He accused her, she laughed it off, and he literally flipped the table they were playing on. It broke a bunch of glasses, and my mom was shoved into the corner with a table on top of her. And by the way, my uncle is around 6'4" and probably 230 pounds. My older brother, who is 5'3" and maybe 140 pounds, charges my uncle as soon as he understood what happened. More relatives jump in, but my uncle is the biggest by far. He's very much punching down at everyone trying to stop him. Now, I for the most part start gathering all my younger siblings and cousins and nieces, and I barricade myself into a room with them. The kids are screaming and crying, but I just have them huddled together to try and comfort each other. I hush them a bit and I listen at the door for anything. The next part I didn't see with my own eyes, but apparently my brother was beat down by my uncle. My cousins and father tried to chase my uncle out of the house, and they tousled down the hallway and eventually crashed into the door I had barricaded myself and the kids behind, but didn't break it down. Once they got my uncle outside, they locked the screen door to keep him out, because I guess they were trying to talk him down or something like that. The screen door we have is a metal mesh with metal framing as support, but my uncle was not going to let that stop him. He slammed on the door until the screen broke off of the metal bars in one corner, and this is supposedly when my dad brought out a weapon and chased him off the property. My mom's sister went out to drive around and find her husband, leaving 3 of her children stranded at our house, marking quite literally the end of the party. When the dust settled, my mother had some minor scrapes and aches from being pushed over, our door was broken, and my brother's eye was swollen shut with my father looking incredibly pissed off. And this unfortunately leads into another sequence of events a few weeks later. The oldest daughter of the offending uncle was having her first child and had planned a baby shower at her parents' home. All of my cousins have a really close bond with my mom, as she's always opened our home to them whenever they needed a place to stay, or even just to have a place that they can vent. So my cousin really wanted my mom to be at her baby shower, but the only problem was that my uncle had never apologized. My mom's sister even told my mom that no apology was necessary, and that she needed to get over it. She even implied that her husband's reaction was justified, and that maybe my mom shouldn't have cheated, which, to be clear, my mom did not cheat. She just doesn't drink or use any substances, so it's easy for her to beat a few drunks at blackjack. Anyways, my mom refused to go. My cousin pleaded with her and was looking for any kind of compromise. And so my mom gave her 3 options. Either the uncle is not present at the shower, the uncle apologizes, or she will just not be showing up. And this very much upset my cousin, to the point where she began talking garbage to the rest of the family. My younger siblings, who mostly hadn't been informed of the extent of the drama, since I had managed to shield them enough from the actual event, were excited to go to the baby shower. After talking it over with my mom, she decided that I should go and take my younger siblings with us. My older brother quite obviously didn't want to be involved, but my mother thought the drama would cease if she would let us show our faces there, and that this would hopefully smooth things over. And in a way, she was right. The baby shower was largely uneventful, and my uncle basically stayed in his room the entire night. We didn't greet him when he made a brief appearance, and then we just eventually left the party. That side of the family wasn't invited to any of the family gatherings we hosted for the next couple of months, besides maybe a few of my cousins who were more well-behaved. But then eventually my mom's sister came around again, and then eventually my uncle along with her. And as you can probably guess, they never apologized. They just showed up less and never stayed at a party for a long time. And to top it all off, our screen door never got fixed, so I'm honestly hoping I don't have to deal with my uncle in that way ever again. Yeah, that guy sounds like a very dangerous drunk person, and I don't blame you and your family for being hesitant to be around him in the first place. Like, this guy literally thought your mom was cheating, so he was like, okay, I'm gonna flip a table and get everybody injured. Like, that truly is insane, and I really hope things get better between you and your extended family. My mom and I are constantly having fights about money, and it's now reaching a breaking point as she is actively talking garbage about me behind my back to my siblings. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So ever since my dad passed away 3 years ago, money has become a major issue in the household. I still live at home at 28, mainly because I can't afford to move out, and also because I wanted to be there for my mom during these tough times. I earn about $27,000 and have credit card debt I'm trying to pay off. I also give my mom about $450 a month, which is more than I can afford. On top of that, I buy groceries for my sister and I, which comes up to about $200 a month because my mom refuses to help out with any groceries. I give my little sister and brother money whenever my mom can't afford to do so, and I take my sister out shopping or to the cinema once a month. I split the cooking with my mom, and I help with cleaning the house, and even give my mom additional money to send to my grandma. However, my mom often complains and tells me that I'm not doing enough. My mom works part-time and is claiming benefits, and I can't have a single conversation with her without her raising her financial worries. She has become extremely self-centered over the years, and the conversation must always revolve around her. She never asks about me and just doesn't care what I have to say. She also always tells my sister and I how she always feels so low. At first, we would be very sympathetic, but when we're hearing the same thing every day for 3 years, and she takes her stress and anger out on us, it starts to become unbearable. I've been dealing with anxiety for years, and I'm at a really low point in my life, and I feel like I've failed in all aspects. However, I always appear happy and bubbly in front of everybody. Yesterday, I came home from a work trip to see my mother sitting there with my brother, looking really gloomy, and she barely greeted me. Later, my brother proceeds to tell me that my mother spent the past hour complaining about me, saying that the money I give her isn't enough. She said the next time I spend her money, she is just gonna send it right back to me as it's useless, and she doesn't want it as it doesn't cover the remainder of the rent. She said she's not happy about how I'm not paying the bills, and that I should also be helping pay for the broadband, even though I'm giving her $450 a month. She also complained that the housing benefits she receives are low because I'm still living at home. Now, my siblings were extremely shocked at her behavior and defended me in my absence, and when I heard all of this, I was just completely broken. I just burst out in tears in front of my siblings. I felt so worthless in all aspects of my life, and I just couldn't cope anymore. I went on a walk at night, to which my mother followed me, and I haven't spoken to her since, and she is also giving me the silent treatment as if I've done something wrong. Not to mention, a few weeks ago, we got into an argument because she demanded that I buy a brand new $300 bed because my brother is moving back home with us after graduating. Before this, my mom and I had an extremely strong relationship. I considered her my best friend. However, she's changed over the years and has become so nasty. I'm so upset and I'm hurt that I barely want to eat. Am I in the wrong for giving my mom the silent treatment? Sometimes I feel insensitive considering that she's also lost her husband, but I've also lost my dad, who I was extremely close to. What should I do? Honestly, I don't think your mom is ever going to change in regards to like how she treats you, but I think you absolutely can change your situation if you really wanted to. So in my opinion, if I was in your shoes, I would be planning to move out. I understand that it's hard to afford that, but if you find enough roommates and enough people to jump in, you really can get your own place and have somewhere you can live besides this. And this especially sucks because you wanted to be there for your mom during these tough times that she's going through. Like clearly your dad passing away has affected everybody negatively. So for your mom to be like, wow, you're not doing enough. You need to pay me more. You're not doing anything in this house. Or to even begin to have that kind of conversation, in my opinion, is so inappropriate. Because from the sounds of it, you're the one doing everything around the house. So hopefully your situation can change sooner than later, because the way your mom's acting, in my opinion, is completely inappropriate. Am I the jerk for taking part of my daughter's settlement money to pay for her tuition after she failed her senior year? Because right now she's claiming that I'm stealing from her, and at this point I really don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So I'm a 49-year-old female, and my daughter won a decent amount of money from a personal injury settlement a few years ago. Now, since she is a minor, the money has been in an account that I plan to keep until she turned 18 years old. My plan was to always give it to her once she's an adult, so she can use it however she wants, whether that's for college, a car, or if she just wants to save it up for the future. As long as she's using it responsibly, then I'm okay with it. Well, here's the issue that comes in. She failed her senior year of high school. 2024 has been a rough year for her, but she didn't put in the bare minimum effort, and she knows that. She has now begun to repeat the year, and the tuition for her school isn't cheap, and we've already paid for all of her years until now. Well, I decided that since she failed and has to repeat the year and decided to lie about it, I'm going to take this extra year's worth of tuition out of her settlement money. Well, when I did that, she flipped out, saying the money is hers and that I'm stealing it when both me and her dad have agreed on keeping that specific amount. She told her oldest brother that he should enjoy university because her money's paying for it, and this just goes to show that she has no concept of money, because if she knew how much university tuition cost, she wouldn't be saying this. Not to mention her brother was and has always been a better student. To make matters more complicated, she has always had bad spending habits, so I can't and won't give her that money until she's an adult, and she also considers that as stealing. So am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? Okay, I absolutely think the original poster's the jerk here, but not for the obvious reasons of literally taking her money without asking. Like, how on earth did you miss the fact that your daughter is failing her senior year? Like, schools send progress reports all the time. They're always updating the parents on stuff going on, and I'm pretty sure if your daughter was on the verge of failing, especially her senior year, then you would probably know about it sooner than later. So sure, she's not doing what she needs to do, but you definitely never stepped up to the plate to help her either. So on that end, I think you're an awful parent, and the favoritism towards your son could not be more obvious. Like, halfway through the post, you start trashing your daughter all because money was involved. And it's like, oh, okay, now you want to be a parent, but where were you when she was literally failing all of her classes for months on end? But when it comes to the money itself, yes, I absolutely think you're stealing from your daughter to pay for something that you could have prevented. If you weren't so neglectful, you could have caught the fact that your daughter was not doing what she needs to do at school. And sure, there absolutely is blame that needs to be placed on the daughter, but for you to sit there and be like, oh my god, I can't believe you failed, and then act like she doesn't know what she's doing with money, when clearly you don't know what you're doing as a parent, in my opinion, is so ironic. So yes, you are the jerk for using that money on your daughter's tuition, because this all could have absolutely been avoided. My parents treated me like garbage throughout my entire childhood, and even treat me badly as an adult, that I'm now questioning everything I ever had to do with my parents. Here's what happened. So my brother and I are in our 30s, and my parents are in their 60s. A lot of people have told me that barring some serious cases that might be going on in the home, you always owe your parents a relationship, and that I should just talk to them about it. So I asked my parents what kind of relationship they want to have with me, but they scoffed at my question. And when I asked them again a few months later, they just rolled their eyes at me. I've asked my parents many times to stop scoffing at me and rolling their eyes at me, and always dismissing me, but I always end up causing a fight. When I try to talk to my parents, they usually react with haughty dismissal, ridicule, or interruption. It's uncommon for me to be able to speak a full sentence that they actually listen to and understand. As a small child, I caused a lot of fights with my parents by talking to them unnecessarily. By the age of 10 10 years old, I learned to minimize unnecessary communication. And these days, my relationship with my parents consists of them talking at me while I sit there passively. Before going to therapy, I thought that most parent-child relationships were like ours, but my therapist said that most parents take an interest in their children's lives, and I was pretty shocked because my parents rarely ask me anything about my life or myself, and if they do, they interrupt me almost as soon as I start answering. My therapist also said that most parents are nice to their children. Well, my parents said they were nasty to me because they love me. Growing up, my friends would sometimes ask me, "Why are your parents so mean?" And I would say, well, it's because they love me, implying that my friends' kind parents didn't love them. I was completely brainwashed by my parents. But all of this explains why I never felt bonded to my parents growing up. As awful as it sounds, I didn't love them. I learned pretty early on that I had to simulate love with on-demand hugs, as well as on-demand smiles and obedience and silence, while also just going along with ideological compliance. So I just faked it until I made it, but I never made it to the point of developing actual love for my parents, and I don't plan on doing that moving forward. Yeah, I can completely understand where you're coming from because that sounds awful. Like, I can't imagine having a household like that where your parents literally just did not care about you in the slightest. They treated you like garbage and just literally did not do anything to make you feel comfortable in your own home. So personally, when it comes to that statement from the beginning where people try to tell you, oh, you should always try to have a relationship with your parents. Like, if my parents acted like that, there's no way I would ever want anything to do with them. And why would I? Like, what you described sounds awful. They basically excused away all of their bad behavior, and that was not fair for you in the slightest. So moving forward, I really don't blame you because what you described absolutely sounds awful. My grandma keeps coming over and gardening in my yard, including making changes to my late husband's memorial spot. And right now, I am so frustrated because at this point, I really don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, I want to start off by saying that I'm so frustrated, and I don't know if saying anything to her was the right move. To preface all of this, I have a lot of privilege, specifically due to my grandparents who are fairly wealthy. They have bailed me out financially many times, they've helped with groceries, and most notably, they gave me a place to live very cheaply. They owned my childhood home, and when the old tenant moved out, they offered it to me. At first, they said they were giving it to me in full with a $1 sale to make it official. My husband and I did not renew our lease for this, so we could move. Well, once it was too late to renew and our lives were packed up, then she suddenly said it would be a couple of years and that I would rent until then. Now, this is not what we agreed on, but the rent was severely discounted, so okay, fine, I guess. So we moved in because we literally didn't have much of a choice. Well, my husband ended up dying right afterwards and I started gardening. My grandma also loves to garden, and she told me I could do whatever I want with a yard. So I was planning things out and picking out plants. Well, the first thing she brings over are lots of plants, despite me saying, please let me pick out my own. She was not checking if they were cat friendly, as I do have strays, and she was bringing me things I wasn't even ready to plant. So she took it upon herself to start planting them in places I didn't want. Then, despite me trying to buy black mulch myself, she took it upon herself to be helpful and buy a bunch of brown mulch instead. Which, okay, fine, that's not a big deal, I guess. But it wasn't even my project anymore, it was hers. Well, then she was talking about how nice it would look wrapped around the house. And I wasn't sure if that's what I wanted to do with it, so I told her so. And that was the same thing with putting the rose bush that she bought under my bedroom window. I didn't even want that there. I came home 2 days ago, and the whole area had been mulched with the rose bush planted exactly how she wanted it. Well, yesterday, I came home to that mulch filled with plants that I didn't want, several of which are toxic to cats. And worst of all, my late husband's memorial spot had been supposedly fixed. It was a rose bush with black mulch around it that had his ashes sprinkled over it. It was meant to stay black. I didn't care if it blended with the rest. I had my own ideas for which plants to put next to it. And now all that black mulch is covered, so it blends with the rest, with plants being added around it, and one of which is a flower that I know he would have hated. I've been so polite about asking her to stop, but this is just too much. So I got mad, and she seems so confused about all of this. So I'm honestly so frustrated right now, and I really don't know what to do. Yeah, this is a really crappy situation for several reasons, but the biggest one, in my opinion, is the fact that your grandma tricked you guys. She literally said, oh yeah, you can buy our house for $1, and then she waits until you guys are all packed up and ready to move in, only for her then to like pull the rug out from underneath you and be like, psych, just kidding, you're gonna rent. And it's like, well, at this point, I got no choice but to move in. So that's like a big immediate red flag in my opinion, and you guys did not deserve that. But when it comes to the whole gardening situation, as well as her messing with your husband's memorial, like that all sounds incredibly intrusive, and it's just completely inconsiderate to you and your feelings. Not to mention your cats and these toxic plants that are all around the house. Like, is she trying to do this on purpose, or is this just willful ignorance? parents. But either way, it sounds like your grandma's being very selfish towards you, and it really seems like everything in your life recently has revolved around what your grandma wants instead of what you want. And that would personally drive me insane. So if I was dealing with this, I would have said something as well. Like, she's being very rude and absolutely inconsiderate towards you, and that is not fair in the slightest. Because setting boundaries like this is never a bad idea, especially if you have someone as intrusive as your grandma.
When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications. To finish listening to all the stories, check out the playlist at the top of the description. And if you want some chill music to put on in the background, check out easymode.com. If you like Am I the Jerk, subscribe to Am I the Genius. Everything will be linked down below in the description.